Tae-yun Park looked up at the purple sky of Epsilon Draconis IV. The two suns were setting, painting the clouds with orange and pink light. He checked his oxygen meter, still good for more hours. The air on this planet was breathable, but thin at higher altitudes, and Tae-yun planned to climb high today. "Base camp, this is Park. I'm heading up the East Ridge now," he said into his wrist communicator. "Copy that, Park. Remember to stay below the red line on your map," replied Do-yun. "The mission controller, those are dragon territories." Tae-yun smiled to himself. Dragons. That's what the Earth colonists called the massive flying creatures that ruled the skies of this world. The science team used the proper term, Draconis Valens, but everyone knew what they really were. With wingspans of 8 meters, scales that shimmered blue and purple, and the ability to breathe superheated air. What else could you call them? He adjusted the weight of his pack and continued climbing. The rocky path grew steeper, but his boots gripped well. 3 months on this planet, and this was his first solo research trip. As the newest xenobiologist on the team, he usually got stuck with lab work. Not today, he muttered, pulling himself up a large boulder. Today he would gather his own data. 2 hours later, Tae-yun reached a flat area on the mountainside, perfect for setting up his equipment. He took out his sensors and placed them in a wide circle. These would record any sounds, movements, or heat signatures in the area. Next came the camera drones, tiny flying robots that would capture video from different angles. "Base camp, I'm at the observation point, setting up now," he reported or received. "Your vitals look good. Any sign of dragons?" asked Do-yun. "Not yet, but there's a nest about half a kilometer up. I can see it through my binoculars. Remember the safety protocols, Park. First sign of aggression, you pack up and leave." Tae-yun nodded, though no one could see him. Understood. He finished setting up and sat down to wait. His research focused on dragon behavior and communication. The science team knew the creatures were smart, much smarter than Earth animals. They used tools, hunted in groups, and seemed to have some form of language. Tae-yun wanted to record their sounds and try to find patterns. The sun dipped lower. Tae-yun checked his watch. Almost 2 hours with no dragon sightings. Maybe he'd chosen the wrong spot. He was about to call base camp when he heard a deep whooshing sound, like giant wings cutting through air. He looked up and froze. A dragon was circling overhead. Not just any dragon, but one of the largest he'd ever seen. Its scales were deep blue, almost black, with purple edges that caught the fading sunlight. Tae-yun estimated its wingspan at 10 meters at least. The dragon circled lower. Tae-yun's heart pounded in his chest. He should run, hide, but his feet wouldn't move. The creature landed on a rock outcrop 30 meters away, close enough for Tae-yun to see its golden eyes fixed on him. "Base camp," he whispered into his communicator. "Dragon sighting, adult, very large, it's watching me." Static answered him. The mountain must be blocking the signal. The dragon tilted its head, studying Tae-yun with what looked like curiosity. Then it did something unexpected. It made a series of sounds, not roars or growls, but complex patterns of clicks, rumbles, and whistling noises. Tae-yun's scientific mind kicked in. Despite his fear, he pressed the record button on his data pad. The sounds continued for about 20 seconds, then stopped. The dragon seemed to be waiting for something. Without thinking, Tae-yun tried to copy the sounds. His human throat couldn't make all the noises, but he managed a rough imitation of the pattern. The dragon's reaction was immediate. It stood taller, its wings half opening in what looked like surprise. Then it made another series of sounds different from the first. "You're talking to me," Tae-yun whispered. "You're actually trying to communicate." For the next hour, Tae-yun and the dragon exchanged sounds. He recorded everything. The dragon never moved closer, but it never flew away either. As darkness fell, the creature finally spread its wings and took off, disappearing into the night sky. Tae-yun's hands shook as he packed up his equipment. His mind raced with possibilities. No one had ever reported this kind of interaction before. Most dragon encounters ended with the humans running away or the dragons attacking. If they got too close to a nest. When he finally got back in communication range, his wrist device buzzed non-stop. Park, where have you been? We've been trying to reach you for hours. Doyeon's voice was tight with worry. I'm fine. Better than fine. You won't believe what happened. Back at base camp, Tae-yun downloaded his recordings and showed them to the science team. 6 people crowded around the small screen, watching the dragon interaction with wide eyes. It's mimicking you, said Jiwoo, the head xenobiologist. Or you're mimicking it. Either way, this is unprecedented. Not mimicking, Tae-yun argued. Communicating. Look at the pattern changes. When I got a sound wrong, it repeated and slowed down. When I got it right, it moved to a new pattern. Like teaching, said Minji, another researcher. It was teaching. You. Doyeon looked concerned. The colony administrator needs to know about this. And Earth Command too. I need to go back. Tae-yun said. Tomorrow, the dragon might return. Absolutely not, Doyeon replied. It's too dangerous. But this could be the breakthrough we've been looking for. Think about it if we could communicate with them, learn from them. Jiwoo studied the recordings again. The patterns do seem intentional, not random noises. That night, Tae-yun couldn't sleep. He reviewed his recordings over and over. There was something familiar about the dragon sounds, not the sounds themselves, but the structure, the way they flowed from one to another. He pulled up the colony's database and searched for ancient Earth languages. Nothing matched. Then he tried musical patterns, mathematical sequences. Still nothing. At 3 a.m., a new idea struck him. He searched for dragon myths in the database. Thousands of results appeared, stories from every human culture about dragons. Most were just fantasies, but some contained detailed descriptions of how legendary dragon tamers or dragon whisperers supposedly communicated with the beasts. One account from medieval Europe described a series of throaty calls, rising and falling like waves on the shore. Another from ancient China mentioned the dragon tongue, which begins deep and ends high, with many small sounds between. Tae-yun sat back, amazed. The descriptions matched what he had experienced. But how could ancient humans on Earth know about communication patterns with dragons from a planet light years away? Unless he pulled up the colony's archaeological reports. Early surveys had found cave paintings on Epsilon Draconis IV that seemed to show bipedal figures alongside dragons. The scientists had assumed they represented the planet's original inhabitants, now extinct. But what if they weren't aliens? What if they were humans? Tae-yun stared at his screen, a wild theory forming in his mind. He needed to go back to the mountain. He needed to find that dragon again. Because if he was right, humans and dragons had met before long. Long ago, and somewhere on this planet. The secrets of their ancient relationship were waiting to be discovered. 3 days passed before Tae-yun could return to the mountain. Director Hyun-soo had called endless meetings about the dragon encounter. Scientists argued about what the sounds meant. Security officers worried about safety. Everyone had opinions, but no one had answers. I need to go back, Tae-yun said for the 10th time, standing in the director's office. The dragon might be waiting. Director Hyun-soo frowned. It's too dangerous to go alone. Then let me take someone with me. After more debate, they reached a compromise. Tae-yun could return to the mountain, but with 2 conditions. He must take another researcher, and they must carry emergency beacons. Minji volunteered to go. I want to hear these dragon sounds for myself, she said, packing sound equipment into her bag. Unlike some of the other scientists, she believed Tae-yun's theory might be right. The next morning, they set out early. The climb was harder with all the extra gear, but they reached the observation point before noon. Tae-yun set up the equipment, just as before, placing sensors in a wide circle. Now we wait, he said, sitting on a flat rock. Minji looked nervous. What if it doesn't come back? It will, Tae-yun said with more confidence than he felt. I think it was as curious about me as I was about it. Hours passed. The suns climbed high, then began to sink. Minji checked her watch. We should head back soon. It will be dark in 2 hours. Just a little longer, Tae-yun pleaded. As if answering his call, a shadow passed overhead. They looked up to see the same blue-black dragon circling above them. Minji gasped and grabbed Tae-yun's arm. It's okay, he said quietly. Don't make sudden moves. The dragon landed in the same spot as before, about 30 meters away. Its golden eyes fixed on them, head tilting as it noticed Minji. It recognizes you, she whispered. Tai Hien nodded and slowly stood up. The dragon watched him, but showed no signs of aggression. Taking a deep breath, Tai Yun made the same series of sounds. He had practiced for days the greeting pattern the dragon had taught him. The response was immediate. The dragon made a similar sound, then added new ones. Tai Yun tried to copy them, stumbling over the complex patterns. The recorder is getting all this, Minji said, her voice filled with wonder. This is amazing. For the next hour, Tai Yun and the dragon exchanged sounds. Sometimes the dragon would repeat a pattern until Tai Yun got it right. Other times, it seemed to respond to his attempts with new sounds. I think it has a name, Tai Yun said suddenly. There's one sound it makes when it seems to refer to itself. He tried to reproduce it, a low rumble followed by a clicking sound and a soft whistle. Bile, Minji said. It sounds like bile. Tai Yun nodded. Bile it is. As the light faded, the dragon now named Bile did something unexpected. It moved closer. Just 10 meters away now. Minji tensed, but Tai Yun stayed calm. It's okay, he said to both Minji and the dragon. We're friends. Bile lowered its massive head and made a new sound, softer, almost gentle. Then it dropped something from its mouth onto the ground. With one last look at Tai Yun, it spread its wings and flew away. When they were sure it was gone, Tai Yun walked over to see what Bile had left. It was a strange object, a smooth stone about the size of his palm, with markings carved into it. What is it? Minji asked, joining him. I don't know, Tai Yun said, turning the stone over in his hands. But it was a gift. Bile wanted me to have it. Back at the colony, their report caused even more excitement. The recorded sounds were analyzed by computers. The stone was examined by archaeologists. Everyone had theories, but no one had definite answers. The markings on the stone match symbols found in the cave paintings, said Junho, the colony's archaeologist. This wasn't made by the dragon. It was made by someone with hands and tools. The previous inhabitants, asked Director Hyun-soo. Maybe, Junho replied. Or maybe Tai Yun's wild theory isn't so wild after all. Over the next week, Tai Yun visited the mountain every day. Bile came each time, sometimes alone, sometimes with other dragons watching from a distance. Their communication grew more complex. Tai Yun learned to make more of the dragon sounds, and Bile seemed to understand some of his simple words. I think it's time, Tai Yun told Minji after 2 weeks of these meetings. I want to try something new. What do you mean? She asked, helping him pack for the next day's trip. I want to touch Bile. Minji dropped the sensor she was holding. Are you crazy? It could kill you in a second. I don't think it will, Tai Yun said. We've built trust, and look at this. He showed her the stone again, pointing to one of the symbols. Junho thinks this might mean bond or connect. What if it's instructions? The next day, Tai Yun climbed the mountain alone. Minji had refused to come, saying she wouldn't watch him get eaten. He set up minimal equipment and waited. Bile arrived earlier than usual. As if sensing something important would happen, Tai Yun began with their usual sound exchanges. Then, heart pounding, he slowly stood and took a step toward the dragon. Bile watched, but didn't move away. Another step, then another. When he was just 5 meters from the massive creature, Tai Yun stopped and held out his hand, palm forward. Bile tilted its head, considering. Then, moving with surprising gentleness for such a large being, it extended its neck and touched its snout to Tai Yun's hand. A jolt of energy passed between them. Not painful, but intense, like static electricity. But stronger. Images flashed in Tai Yun's mind. Mountains seen from above. The feeling of wind under wings. A cave filled with glowing crystals. He pulled his hand back, gasping. Bile made a soft sound, almost like a purr. Did you do that? Tai Yun whispered. Did you put those pictures in my head? In response, Bile lowered its body to the ground in a clear invitation. Tai Yun stared, not believing what he was seeing. The dragon wanted him to climb on its back. Every safety protocol said to refuse. Every scientific principle warned against it. But something deeper, something he couldn't explain, told him this was right. With shaking hands, Tae-yun approached the dragon's side. Bile remained perfectly still as he carefully climbed onto its back, finding a spot between two large scales where he could hold on. "I must be insane," he muttered before he could change his mind. Bile stood up. Tae-yun grabbed tighter, heart racing. The dragon turned its head to look at him, as if checking that he was secure. Then, with a powerful push of its legs, it leaped into the air. Tae-yun's stomach dropped as they shot upward. The ground fell away at terrifying speed. Wind rushed past his face. For a moment, pure fear gripped him. Then Bile's wings opened fully, catching the air, and they were soaring. The fear transformed into something else, something wonderful. They flew over mountains and valleys, higher than the colony's aircraft ever went. Tae-yun saw the world as dragons saw it, and it was beautiful. When they finally landed back at the observation point, Tae-yun slid off Bile's back on shaky legs. The dragon made a sound that seemed almost like laughter. "Thank you," Tae-yun said. Bowing slightly, Byo elbowed its head in return, then took off into the sky. That night, Tae-yun dreamed of flying, and in his dreams, he heard words in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. "The bond has begun. The old ways return. Human and dragon will fly together again." The colony buzzed with excitement and fear. Everyone had seen the video from Tae-yun's helmet camera, a human riding on a dragon's back, soaring above the mountains. Some people called him brave. Others called him foolish. Director Hyun-soo called him reckless and banned him from returning to the mountain alone. "You could have been killed," the director said during an emergency meeting. "No more solo trips." "But Bile trusted me," Tae-yun argued. "And I trusted Bile. That's the whole point. Dragons and humans can work together." After much debate, a compromise was reached. Tae-yun could continue his research, but with a team that included security officers the colony couldn't ignore what had happened. If humans could communicate with dragons, it changed everything about their future on this planet. A week later, Tae-yun led a group of 5 people up the mountain, Minji, to security officers named Hanyul and Jun, the archaeologist, Junho, and himself. They carried more equipment than before, including translation software that might help decode the dragon sounds. "Will Bile come with so many people?" Minji asked as they set up camp. "I think so," Tae-yun said, "but everyone needs to stay calm and follow my lead." They didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, 3 dragons appeared in the sky. Bile was in the center, with 2 smaller dragons flanking it. "Stay still," Tae-yun told the group as the dragons landed on nearby rocks. "Let me approach first." He walked forward slowly, making the greeting sounds he had practiced. Bile responded, then looked curiously at the other humans. "Friends," Tae-yun said, pointing to his team. "They are friends for the next 2 hours." Tae-yun acted as a bridge between the humans and dragons. The translation software recorded everything, but couldn't make much sense of the dragon language yet. Still, simple communication was possible through sounds and gestures. "Bile seems to be trying to tell us something," Junho said, watching the dragon make repeated movements toward the higher peaks. "I think it wants us to follow," Tae-yun agreed. "I think you're right." The security officers looked nervous. "Following dragons into unknown territory isn't in our mission parameters," Hanyul said. "This whole planet is unknown territory," Tae-yun replied. "And we came here to explore, didn't we?" After calling base camp for permission, they packed up their gear and followed Bile. The dragon led them up a path that humans had never mapped before, climbing higher into the mountains. The 2 smaller dragons flew overhead, sometimes disappearing and then returning, as if scouting. The path grew steeper and narrower. Just when some team members were starting to struggle with the climb, they reached a high plateau. Bile stopped and turned to face them. "Look at that," Minji gasped, pointing ahead. In the rock face before them was an opening, not a natural cave, but a doorway carved with symbols. The same symbols that were on the stone Bile had given Tae-yun. "This is incredible," Junho said, examining the doorway. "These carvings are precise, made with tools. Definitely not made by dragons." "Then who made them?" Jun asked, his hand resting on his weapon. "Let's find out," Tae-yun said, stepping toward the entrance. Inside, the passage widened into a large chamber. Light filtered in from small openings in the ceiling, illuminating what could only be described as a temple or meeting hall. The walls were covered with paintings and carvings showing dragons and bipedal figures, humans living and working together. "These match the cave paintings we found in the lower valleys," Junho said, taking pictures of everything, "but these are much more detailed." Bile moved to the center of the chamber and made a series of sounds. Then it used its snout to push against a section of the floor. A stone panel slid aside, revealing a hidden compartment. Tae-yun knelt down and looked inside. The compartment contained objects wrapped in a leather-like material. Carefully, he lifted one out and unwrapped it. "It's some kind of scroll," he said, showing the others. The scroll was made from a thin, flexible material, not paper, but something similar. It was covered with writing in an unknown language and detailed illustrations of dragons and humans. Some pictures showed humans making specific gestures or sounds, with dragons responding. "It's a manual," Minji realized, "a guide for communicating with dragons." They found more scrolls in the compartment, each containing different information. One showed humans riding dragons with special harnesses. Another had detailed drawings of dragon anatomy. A third seemed to be a history, showing humans and dragons arriving on the planet together. "This changes everything we thought we knew," Junho said, carefully examining each scroll. "These aren't just random cave paintings. This is a record of an advanced civilization, humans and dragons living together thousands of years ago." Tae-yun looked at Bile, who was watching them with intelligent eyes. "You knew about this place. You wanted us to find it." The dragon made a soft sound that seemed like agreement. "But how?" Hanyul asked. "How could humans be here thousands of years ago? We only developed space travel in the last few centuries. Maybe we didn't come here on our own ships," Tae-yun said slowly, pointing to one of the scrolls. It showed a massive object in the sky, with dragons and humans inside it. "Maybe we came with them." As they continued exploring the chamber, they found more evidence supporting this theory. One wall had a star map carved into it, with lines connecting different systems. Another showed what looked like a timeline, with events marked by symbols. "I think I understand now," Tae-yun said, piecing it all together. "Dragons aren't just native animals on this planet. They're an intelligent species that once had advanced technology. They traveled between stars, and at some point, they brought humans with them. But something happened," Minji added, looking at a section of carvings that showed destruction and chaos. "Some kind of disaster, and the humans died out while the dragons survived," Junho finished. "But the dragons remembered. They passed down the knowledge through generations, waiting for humans to return." Bile made a series of sounds, moving from one carving to another as if trying to explain. The translation software captured everything but still couldn't decode it fully. "We need to bring more researchers here," Tae-yun said. "Linguists, historians, archaeologists. This could take years to understand completely." As they prepared to leave, Bile stopped Tae-yun with a gentle nudge. The dragon moved to another hidden compartment and revealed one more object, a small device made of an unknown metal, shaped like a pendant. When Tae-yun picked it up, it began to glow with a soft blue light. Symbols appeared on its surface, changing and shifting. "What is it?" Minji asked. "I don't know," Tae-yun replied, "but I think it's important." Bile made a sound and touched its snout to the pendant. Images flashed in Tae-yun's mind again, stronger than before, memories that weren't his own. Knowledge of a world he had never seen. "I think it's some kind of communication device," he said, his voice filled with wonder, "a way to bridge the gap between our minds." As they made their way back down the mountain, Tae-yun felt the weight of discovery on his shoulders. They had found something that would change humanity's understanding of its own history. Humans and dragons had a shared past and now, perhaps, a shared future. Back at the colony, Director Hyun-soo listened to their report with growing amazement. "If what you're saying is true, we need to inform Earth immediately. This discovery is too important to keep to ourselves." "There's something else," Tae-yun said, showing the director the pendant. "I think the dragons want to teach us." They've been waiting for thousands of years for humans to return so they could rebuild what was lost. That night, as the colony hummed with activity and plans for expanded research, Tae-yun stood outside looking at the stars. The pendant hung around his neck, occasionally pulsing with soft light. He felt bile before he saw the dragon, a presence in his mind that was becoming familiar. Looking up, he spotted the dark shape circling above the colony's lights. "We have a lot to learn from each other," Tae-yun whispered, "and I think we're just getting started." 1 month after discovering the ancient chamber, the mountain had become a busy research site. Scientists from the colony worked there every day, studying the scrolls and carvings. They built a small base camp near the entrance, with equipment to document everything. Tae-yun spent most of his time there, working with Bile and the other dragons. The pendant never left his neck. Each day, he understood more of the dragon language, and the dragons seemed to understand more human words too. "The translation program is getting better," Minji said one morning, showing Tae-yun the latest results. On her tablet, "We can now translate about 30% of their sounds. That's good." Tae-yun replied, "But there's more to their language than just sounds. They use body movements, wing positions, and something else, something we can't see." He touched the pendant. Since finding it, he had experienced strange dreams and flashes of knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere. Sometimes when Bile was near, he could almost feel what the dragon was feeling. "The pendant is changing you," Minji said quietly. She had noticed how Tae-yun sometimes tilted his head like a dragon, or made small sounds without realizing it. "Not changing," he corrected, "connecting. I think that's what it was designed to do, connect human and dragon minds." That afternoon, a message arrived from Earth. Director Hyunsu called an emergency meeting at the main colony. "Earth Command has made a decision about our discovery," the director announced to the gathered researchers. "They're sending a special team to take over the research." "Take over?" Tae-yun asked, not liking the sound of this. Double quotes, "Yes. Military scientists with expertise in xenobiology and potential weapons applications. They'll arrive in 3 weeks." The room erupted in protests. The colony scientists had been making great progress. "Why bring in outsiders now?" "I don't like it either," Director Hyunsu said, raising his hands for quiet. "But we don't have a choice. Earth sees the dragons as a potential resource." "They're not a resource," Tae-yun said angrily. "They're an intelligent species with their own culture and history. We should be learning from them, not studying how to use them." After the meeting, Tae-yun walked alone outside the colony fence. His mind was troubled. Earth didn't understand what they had found here. They were thinking in old ways, seeing the dragons as animals to be controlled or weapons to be used. The pendant around his neck grew warm. Tae-yun looked up to see Bile landing nearby. The dragon had never come this close to the colony before. "You know something's wrong," Tae-yun said. Byle made a series of sounds. The translation wasn't perfect, but Tae-yun understood the meaning. "Danger coming. Must prepare. Yes, people are coming from Earth. They might not understand you like we do." The dragon's golden eyes seemed to look right through him. Then Bile did something unexpected. It lowered its head and touched its snout directly to the pendant. A surge of energy flowed through Tae-yun. He gasped and fell to his knees as his mind filled with images, sounds, and knowledge. It was too much, like trying to drink from a waterfall. His vision blurred, and he lost consciousness. When he woke up, he was in the colony's medical center. Minji sat beside his bed, looking worried. "What happened?" he asked, his voice rough. "We found you outside the fence," she said. "You've been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days." Tae-yun tried to sit up but felt dizzy. "Bile, the dragons have been circling the colony since you collapsed. They won't let anyone go to the mountain." Tae-yun touched the pendant. It felt different now, warmer, almost alive against his skin. And his mind felt different too. He knew things he hadn't known before. He understood things that had been mysteries. "I need to talk to Director Hyunsu," he said, swinging his legs off the bed. "It's important." The director was surprised to see Tae-yun walking into his office. "You should be resting," he said. "There's no time," Tae-yun replied. "I know what the pendant is now. I know what the dragons want." He explained what he had learned during his connection with Biol. The pendant was called a mind bridge, a device created thousands of years ago. When humans and dragons first formed their alliance, it allowed a deep mental connection between the species, sharing knowledge and emotions. The dragons were a spacefaring race. Tae-yun explained. They explored many star systems. On Earth, about 10,000 years ago, they found humans. Our ancestors were still living in simple tribes then. Are you saying dragons visited ancient Earth? Director Hyun-soo asked, looking skeptical. Yes, and they saw potential in humans. We had creativity and adaptability that they admired. They invited some humans to join them in space exploration. Those humans became the first dragon riders. Tae-yun went on to explain how the human-dragon teams had traveled to many worlds, including this one. But then a terrible disaster struck, a war with another alien species. The dragon ships were destroyed, stranding them and their human partners on this planet. Over time, the humans died out. They couldn't adapt to this world as well as the dragons could. But before they disappeared, they created these chambers and scrolls to preserve their knowledge, hoping that someday humans would return. Director Hyun-soo leaned back in his chair, trying to process this information. And you learned all this from the pendant, from Biol, through the pendant, Tae-yun corrected. The dragons have been waiting for thousands of years for humans to return so they could rebuild their alliance. If this is true, the director said slowly, then the team coming from Earth needs to understand. They can't treat the dragons as test subjects or potential weapons. There's more, Tae-yun said. The dragons believe another threat is coming, the same enemy that stranded them here long ago. They've been watching the stars. They think Earth might be in danger too. The director's face paled. We need to send this information to Earth immediately. But when they tried to use the colony's communication system, they found it wasn't working. Something was blocking all signals to and from the planet. It started, Tae-yun said grimly. The dragons have been trying to warn us. That night, strange lights appeared in the sky above the colony. Not stars or ships, but something else, energy. Patterns that shifted and moved in ways that defied physics. Tae-yun stood outside, watching the lights with the pendant clutched in his hand. He felt Biol's presence in his mind, stronger than ever. What do we do? He asked aloud. The answer came not in words but in images and feelings. The dragons needed to reconnect with humans fully, not just one human, but many. They needed to rebuild their ancient partnership before the enemy arrived. Tae-yun made his decision. He went to Minji's quarters and woke her up. Pack what you need, he told her. We're going to the mountain tonight. What? Why? She asked, still half asleep. Because Earth is in danger, and the only ones who can help are the dragons. But they need humans to do it, humans who understand them and can work with them. As they slipped out of the colony in the darkness, Tae-yun looked back one last time. The strange lights in the sky were growing brighter. Time was running out. I hope we're not too late, he whispered. Byol was waiting for them beyond the fence. The dragon lowered itself to allow them to climb onto its back. As they took off into the night sky, Tae-yun felt a strange mix of fear and hope. Whatever was coming, humans and dragons would face it together just as they had thousands of years ago. The mountain temple glowed with soft blue light. Tae-yun, Minji, and 5 other brave colonists stood in a circle, each wearing a pendant like Tae-yun's. 7 dragons, including Biol, formed an outer circle around them. 3 days had passed since Tae-yun and Minji fled the colony. In that time, the strange lights in the sky had grown brighter. The colony's communications remained dead, and Director Hyun-soo had finally decided to send trusted people to join Tae-yun. At the mountain, are you sure this will work? Asked Do-yeon, the mission controller who had once warned Tae-yun to stay away from dragons. Now he stood nervously beside his own dragon partner, a green-scaled female named Nari. It has to, Tae-yun replied. The pendants are the key. They were made for this purpose, to connect our minds with the dragons completely. They had found more pendants in a hidden chamber. Deeper in the mountain, ancient writing explained their purpose: to create a bond between human and dragon that went beyond simple communication. A true sharing of minds. Everyone ready? Tae-yun asked, looking around the circle. The others nodded, their faces showing a mix of fear and determination. Remember what I taught you. He continued, don't fight the connection. Let the images flow. It will be overwhelming at first, but your mind will adjust. At his signal, each person approached their dragon partner. Following Tae-yun's example, they touched their pendants to their dragon snouts. The blue glow intensified, filling the chamber with light. Minji gasped as her pendant connected with her dragon. A sleek purple female named Haru. Junho fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the rush of information. One by one, each human experienced the flood of dragon memories and knowledge. Tae-yun and Biol, already connected, watched over the others. Through their bond, Tae-yun could feel Biol's satisfaction. After thousands of years, the dragons were no longer alone in their knowledge. When it was done, the humans stood shakily, their eyes wide with wonder. I can feel her, Minji whispered, touching her head. Haru is in my mind. I can see what she sees, and I can see through Maru's eyes, said Junho, referring to his dragon partner. He's showing me the stars as they looked 1,000 years ago. Tae-yun nodded. Now you understand. The dragons have been watching and waiting. They know what's coming. Through their new connections, each human now understood the threat. The beings that had attacked the dragons long ago, creatures of pure energy, that the dragons called the Void Dancers, had found this world again. They fed on energy, especially the unique energy produced by intelligent minds. Long ago, they had nearly wiped out the dragons across many star systems. But why are they back now? Asked Jiwoo, the colony's chief medical officer, who had joined them yesterday. Because of us, Tae-yun explained. Human minds produce a different kind of energy than dragon minds. When we arrived on this planet, it created a beacon that the Void Dancers could detect across space. So it's our fault they're coming, Doyeon asked. No one is to blame, Tae-yun said. But we need to work together to face them. Through their mental connections, the dragons shared their plan. Long ago, they had developed technology that could repel the Void Dancers. That technology had been lost when their ships were destroyed, but the knowledge remained in dragon memory. With human help, they might rebuild it. There's a place, Tae-yun said, seeing the location in Biol's thoughts. A hidden valley where the dragons stored materials from their ships. We need to go. There, as dawn broke, 7 dragons with human riders took to the sky. They flew higher than the colony's ships ever could, over mountains no human had yet explored. The bond between each pair grew stronger with every passing hour. The humans learned to communicate mentally with their dragons, sharing thoughts without words. By midday, they reached the hidden valley. It was beautiful, a green paradise surrounded by tall cliffs, with a lake at its center. But they had not come for the view. Near the lake stood a structure unlike anything humans had built. It was made of a strange metal that seemed to shift colors in the light. The storehouse, Tae-yun said as Biol landed near the structure. The last remains of dragon technology. Inside, they found what looked like a jumble of metal parts and strange devices. To human eyes, it made little sense, but through their bonds with the dragons, the humans began to understand. These are components for a shield generator, Junho said. Examining a curved piece of metal, it creates a field that disrupts the Void Dancer's energy patterns. And these are power sources, added Minji, pointing to crystal-like objects. They can draw energy from the planet's magnetic field. Working together, humans and dragons began to assemble the ancient technology. The humans had the manual dexterity the dragons lacked, while the dragons provided the knowledge of how everything fit together. It was exactly the partnership that had made them strong thousands of years ago. As they worked, Tae-yun received an urgent message through his bond with Biol. Other dragons were reporting that the colony was in danger. The strange lights the Void Dancers were gathering above it. We need to hurry, he told the others. The colony doesn't know what's happening. They're defenseless. By sunset, they had assembled a device about the size of a small car. It hummed. With power, the crystals at its core glowing with inner light. Will it work? Jiwoo asked, wiping sweat from her forehead. It should, Tae-yun replied. But we need to get it to the colony. The shield only extends about 1 kilometer. The problem was weight. The device was too heavy for a single dragon to carry. They would need to work together, using ropes and harnesses fashioned from materials in the storehouse. They secured the device to be carried between four dragons. The other 3 dragons would carry the humans. It will be difficult, Tae-yun warned. The dragons will need to fly in perfect sync. We can do it, Minji said confidently. Through her bond with Haru, she felt the dragon's determination. The dragons understand what's at stake. As night fell, they took off 7 dragons and 7 humans, united in purpose. The 4 dragons carrying the shield generator flew in tight formation, their movements coordinated through their mental links with their human partners. From high above, they could see the colony and the danger it faced. The strange lights had formed a swirling pattern above it, reaching down with tendrils of energy that probed the buildings and power systems. They're feeding, Tae-yun said grimly, drawing energy from our technology. Soon they'll start feeding on the people, through their dragon bonds. The humans could see what was invisible to normal human eyes, the true form of the void dancers. They were not just lights, but complex energy beings with a hunger that could never be satisfied. As they approached the colony, the void dancers sensed them. Tendrils of energy reached toward the dragons, trying to drain them. Activate the shield, Tae-yun called. Junho, riding with the dragons carrying the device, reached down and pressed the activation sequence they had prepared. The shield generator hummed louder, and a dome of blue-green energy expanded outward, surrounding the dragons and pushing back the energy tendrils. The void dancers recoiled, their light patterns showing distress. The shield was working, disrupting their ability to feed. With renewed determination, the dragons flew toward the colony. As they passed over the fence, people looked up in amazement at the sight of dragons carrying a glowing device. With humans riding on their backs, they landed in the central plaza. Director Hyun-soo ran out of the administration building, his face showing shock and relief. Tae-yun, what is happening? What is that device? It's our protection, Tae-yun explained quickly. The lights in the sky are alien beings that feed on energy, including the energy of our minds. This shield will keep them away. As he spoke, the shield expanded to cover the entire colony. The void dancers above swirled in frustrated patterns, unable to penetrate the protective dome. The shield will hold for now, Tae-yun continued, but there's more we need to do. This is just the beginning. That night, as the colony huddled under the protection of dragon technology, Tae-yun addressed everyone through the emergency system. He explained what they had learned about the ancient partnership between humans and dragons, about the threat they faced, and about the opportunity before them. We have a choice, he said. We can hide behind this shield and hope the void dancers eventually leave, or we can rebuild what was lost, the alliance between our species that once explored the stars. Together, one by one, colonists stepped forward, volunteering to be paired with dragons. The 7 who had already bonded helped teach others how to communicate with the dragons that came to the colony edge each day. A week later, when the Earth ship finally arrived, they were greeted by an astonishing sight: a human colony protected by a shimmering energy shield, with dragons landing and taking off freely within its boundaries. Humans rode on dragon backs, their pendants glowing blue against their chests. The captain of the Earth ship stared in disbelief as Tae-yun and Bio landed before them. Welcome to Epsilon Draconis IV, Tae-yun said, smiling. Or as we now call it, Seer. In the meeting place, we have quite a story to tell you. Above them, the void dancers still circled, hungry but unable to feed. But Tae-yun wasn't worried. With humans and dragons working together again, sharing knowledge and strength, he knew they would find a way to defeat this enemy just as they had thousands of years ago.